Now, conservatism is a state of mind. It reflects and honours the importance of stability and structure. It recognises that historic continuity of human experience offers a better guide than the abstract utopian promises of those who seek to perfect humanity through political means. That means there is no model conservative, simply because humans are inherently variable, and that influences the tradition across communities, social systems and structures. However, there are some general principles to which most conservatives subscribe, and that's the subject of tonight's Talking Points memo. And to discuss them with me, I'm joined by LNP Senator for Queensland, James McGrath. James, thanks for joining me. Let's start with our first talking point. And that is, conservatives believe in enduring moral order. And that's because a functioning society requires order and stability, and a conservative will always question what limits should actually be placed on achieving that order. But as a conservative, we believe that order is better achieved through an enduring moral code innate to every individual rather than through the barrel of a gun. Because when men and women are internally governed by a clear sense of right and wrong, external coercion is not necessary. Now, James, you've worked internationally within the conservative movement, the centre-right movement, you can call it the libertarian movement, whatever you like. Is this a common trait of the conservative ethos across the world?
Totally. The difference between conservatives, that broad church of conservatism that we all fit under, compared to the left, that one of the massive differences is that understanding of the moral order, of that we believe that it's up to humans, men and women, to understand that there is good and bad, and that people themselves are responsible for understanding the difference between good and bad, and understanding that is how society comes together. But is there such a thing as society? And I used to work for the British Conservative Party, and Mrs. Thatcher was famously attacked from the time she said there's no such thing as society. But when you look at what she said in that quote, the quote was about how people put their problems at society and effectively fail to take responsibility for their own actions, and it is up to them to do good, and up to them to do good for their neighbours. And this is what it comes down to being a conservative, is that moral order of how we have a good society, not just a functioning society, a good society, is understanding that difference of how humans behave, because we are imperfect.
Yeah, we certainly are imperfect, and aren't we seeing that a lot this week or the last month or so in Parliament? But talking point number 2, custom, convention and continuity. They are part of our tradition. They're the enduring systems that have passed down through the ages to preserve the hard-won moral capital of generations past. And when we understand why traditions are in place, then we can make prudent change. It can be brought about as a means of building upon that past. And so, James, isn't it important to remember why and how we arrived at the position we have before we start dismantling it and destroying it for something that we have no idea what the implications are going to be?
Totally. This comes to what I think Burke called the social contract, in that we are mere players, minor players, because we've got to think about those who came before us and also those who are going to come after us. And when we think about how we operate as a society through these conventions, to suddenly tear them up, and this is where the left come in, and this is where we in Australia are actually under attack from the left, because they want to tear up these conventions. And the most recent egregious example has been how the Attorney General was treated, where the lynch mob of the left wanted to effectively destroy the rule of law in order to find someone guilty before a proper criminal and judicial process. So we've got that attack on that level, but then we also have the attack when we talk about traditions. Who wants to attack Australia Day? Who wants to attack Anzac Day? It is always the left. And why do they do that? Because they know that these, when I say conventions, these coming together of of men and women in Australia that unite us as a society and bring us together as a functioning good society. So we've got to be aware that we're being attacked constantly.
We are. We've been ruthlessly attacked. And I tell you what our great enemy tonight is, James, is time. And I've got a few more things I want to get off my chest here and discuss with you. Plato, this is talking point number 3. Plato proclaimed that prudence was chief among the virtues. Hence, conservatives believe that decisions should be judged on their own long-term consequences rather than fleeting popularity. And that's why conservatives celebrate healthy diversity, and they recognise that an individual's qualities, talents, capabilities and desires will shape their achievements much more than any social engineering process. We also understand there's no utopia because human nature is, as James McGrath said, imperfect, and there will always be injustice, suffering and maladministration. Haven't we seen that, James, in recent times?
Certainly recent times. I'll just focus on prudence here. Why is it that conservatives, we are always obsessed about paying off the debt? You know why that is? Because we always look towards the long term. And state after state, federal government after federal government, we get in, we pay off the debt, we clean up Labor's mess, then Labor get in, the left get in, and then they live for the moment, and they get that boost of popularity. Whereas we will make those tough decisions because we always look towards the long term, because we understand that we're in the middle of a journey that goes back hundreds, if not thousands of years in terms of how society operates.
Yeah, James, we know talking point number 4, great civilizations are built on the foundations of private ownership, personal responsibility and the freedom to pursue long-term goals of individual interest. Now, the state always seeks to exert more power over these freedoms. And this has led Sam Francis to suggest that without a restraint on power, the morally bankrupt political elite crack down on the law-abiding citizen while becoming impotent to deal with the social dissolution they create through their social engineering. Is that what's happening in America right now, or what?
In America and in other places. But this shows, and I go back to Mrs. Thatcher, her landmark policy of right to buy, allowing people to buy their council homes, to have that foot on the property ladder, to understand the importance of personal responsibility, to actually grow financially so they could grow in society. I mean, this is what conservatism is about. It's about understanding principles like property ownership, being able to own your own home, but what that does to society, selling off public companies so that people can become shareholders.
James McGrath, you're talking my sort of language. Thank you for being an advocate internationally for the principles of conservatism. And for you at home, before I go, there's one more talking point. The Conservative is not opposed to change and recognises that progress is vital for the ongoing development of civilisation and society. However, the desire for change has to be reconciled against the need to protect our enduring structures and the interests that give us stability and continuity. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, to be in the process of change is not an evil any more than to be a product of change is a good.